I'm here with Andrew Morgan, Director of Global 78, an independent research advisory for the logistics sector, not to mention a long-time friend of the FPJ. So thanks a lot for joining us, Andrew.
Pleasure to be with you.
So Andrew has bags of experience developing global supply chain strategies, logistics planning and implementation. And he is embarking on a new project with the FPJ as its media partner to understand how fresh produce supply chains have adapted and continue to adapt to new trading environments post-Brexit. So Andrew, could you tell me a bit about the project and what you're hoping to achieve with the research?
One of the key objectives is to have a comprehensive, coherent understanding of what is going to be happening throughout 2024, and to get that by having a good understanding of the framework that we've currently got. So at the moment, we find that we'll get, say, strong political views, either for and against Brexit. We want to put those to one side. We're very much taking the line of we are where we are. Mm-hmm. If only we knew where we were. And then to understand the current scenario that's applied in 2023. Have that properly mapped and understood and I would say catalogued almost, which can then be the base for further study of then what happens as new regulatory environments roll out in 2024. It's a bit of a long-winded answer to your question.
I don't think so. I think you put it very succinctly. So you're referring there to the border target operating model, which is going to be rolled out next year, starting in January. Could you tell us a bit about what you expect to happen and what impacts you think it might have on the fresh produce industry?
I think before I just answer that one directly, it's worth commenting that we've already got a lot of uncertainty in the industry, and people are trying to make strategic plans. They're trying to devise new contracts going forward. Now, that's easier said than done if you've got things shifting all the time. So one of the problems that the industry has had, both on the logistics side and also if you think about the growers and the importers and traders and others in the industry, is because we've had so much uncertainty, and the uncertainty has been added to by the postponements of the border target operating model to date. We then think, right, we're not quite sure, is this going to happen? Is it going to happen completely? How rigorously is it going to be applied? So with the prospect of 2024, what we're trying to do with the research is to say, right, let's have a good, solid understanding of our starting point. Then, if there's a proposal to do this at this particular point of entry into the UK, or to change that, we then understand the likely impact of that. At the moment, we don't know. I mean, for example, if I'm trying to sort out contracts with, say, a ferry operator to have a certain amount of traffic on a certain route, well, could I be using a different route because I have to because of congestion or whatever? I don't know. So therefore, we need to have a clear view of what's happening now, why, where, and how, and when, all those questions, and then to say, right, now I can overlay a number of different scenarios as the year progresses. And the idea of the research is we've got the starting point, which is a detailed report for the 12 months. And then every quarter, we're then saying, well, this is what's happening on the ground in the past quarter. Then we can see how it goes and we can make sensible projections.
And yeah, I should mention at this juncture that we will be reporting in the Fresh Produce Journal on those quarterly reports. So they will be published on our website with some more detailed information available to subscribers via the app and our print editions. But so it seems that the key objective of the research is to get the lay of the land and to fully understand how the supply chains are adapting to the post-Brexit trading environment. How would you say in broad terms they have adapted so far? Obviously, there's still a whole raft of import controls to be introduced throughout next year for different products. Excluding, I should mention, most fresh fruit and vegetables because they've been exempt from those import controls. But how has the industry been impacted to date?
I think I come back to the point of being uncertain about how it's going to develop. Because as you say, right, you can have exemption for the fresh produce and say, okay, we realize how critical that is and it must keep flowing. But at the same time, that is using the same services and the same points of entry, the same ports and the same routes, the same channels as the other traffic. So if we have got trade coming through of non-food categories, nothing to do with what we're looking at, that is going to impact on the operations as they now are. So I think at the moment it's been a question of adapting as best we can, carrying on with business, because obviously we've got the priorities to keep our business running and our own customers satisfied. But at the same time, we need to be more aware of the capacities and the capabilities. I mean, to give you an illustration, if, for example, we are going to introduce certain controls at a certain entry point, now, do the regulatory authorities, if I'm inspecting and having an increased amount of inspection, have I got the capacity to do that? And how will that be affected by the source of the products that are coming in? For example, if I've got a good relationship, if I trust a source country to supply to a certain standard, that's fine. If I don't, then that's another issue. So the question is, how do I balance this? And if people want to say, well, I want to have a secure route that I can look at with confidence, then how might that be impacted by other things which are then coming on top?
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, the fresh produce industry is, after all, only operating within a much wider context of imports and exports across lots of different product categories. But
yeah, I mean, just as an example, I mean, you look at, do my blueberries come from Zimbabwe? Do they come from Peru? Do they come from Poland? Do they come from the UK? I mean, all right, you've got a whole range of different scenarios which could apply. And I'm sure that the growers and the importers will understand things in a lot more detail than I'm even alluding to at the moment. What I'm trying to do with this piece of research is to say, right, let's look at the whole picture, see how what we're doing in the fresh produce sector aligns with everything else.
Yeah.
Understand how the regulations are likely to be applied on those particular routes. And then that helps us shape the right business relationships. We can have our commercial negotiations. We can also make sure that we don't have any loss of product as a result of delays or misdirected routes.
And are you focusing on certain fruits and vegetables in particular?
Yes, it's basically wanting to look at the products where we've got the most risk. So the ones we've got in mind at the moment, we've identified, we said baby leaf salad, lettuce, spinach, tomato, and berries. Now, The
So
industry might.
our most perishable imports, in other words.
Yes, because obviously, with moving things on supply chains, whether it's some things coming in deep sea, or whether it's coming in on a ro-ro trailer from Spain or wherever, it's time critical, and therefore the temperature and the atmosphere regime is absolutely key as well. We've got limited shelf life. That also brings into question what products can be mixed with other products on a load. That also then looks at the commercial reality. What are the economics? So if I, as it were, segregate out a particular flow, for example, lettuce, what does that do to the products that were also going to be in that trailer before I changed my mind? So although we've got that focus, because that's the one that we see as being most at risk of delay or wrong routing, well, that's related to delay, but the route could also affect the way the product is looked after, the cargo care. We don't want to be narrow. So in other words, it's looking at it in context.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're painting a very complicated picture of the fresh produce logistics jigsaw, which isn't just the fresh produce jigsaw. It also fits into the wider picture of UK trade. But what are some of the practical ways that you envisage this research could be acted on by different companies in the fruit and vegetable supply chain?
Well, I think it's a question of informing the strategic decisions. For example, it's not a question of saying, well, we're going to collect something from another part of Europe or wherever, and putting it on a vehicle and then bringing it in. The original plans will have been devised in consultation, say, with the retailers, and that's regards to planting and growing in the first place. And then we've got all of that cycle, which is dependent on a whole range of factors. We know what we're having to do with climate change. We've then got extreme weather. We've got all kinds of uncertainties from a variety of sources. So the way we see it being used is to say, look, if we are looking ahead and doing our business planning, we're doing our strategic planning, what do we need to know to do a good job so that we can even negotiate properly with our commercial partners? Now, if we're all, I nearly say at sea, but you'll have to pardon that. If we don't have a clear view of how the framework actually works, we may know various bits, and there may be readers watching this video and saying, "Oh, we don't have any problem. We're bringing in whatever it is, not an issue." Well, it's kind of important to expect the unexpected, because we don't know how the way our supply chain, which has been working fine, might be impacted by things that we hadn't even thought about. So the idea of the research is to give those business leaders, especially business planners and strategy policymakers, strategists within the different companies. I had a good friend at one of the retailers describe himself as an operational strategist. So strategy fine, but you're not up there in the clouds. You've also got to look at, well, what is operational reality? And so for those to be properly informed, whether they're logistics service providers, whether they're growers, whether they're retailers, whether they're traders, all of us, we all can benefit from having some good information.
And on that note, could you tell us a bit about how you got into the fresh produce industry and then logistics research? Because I mean, you were saying there the importance of relating it to operations for fruit and vegetable companies and not making it too theoretical? What's your experience actually working in the industry?
Well, funny you should say that, because I'm putting a date on things now, which is always dangerous in today's world. My first experience of the fruit and vegetable sector was in 1968.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a wholesaler in Gloucestershire, working part-time, where we would do a 4:30 start in the morning. We were tipping trailers. There were 2 trailers each week that used to come in from Covent Garden. And we would have market sack trucks. I don't know whether we were supposed to have them or not, but we had them. And we would be standing alongside the trailer, no pallets in those days, everything was handball. And you'd be loading your sack truck and then running it into the store and then going back for more. And as the morning wore on, you would end up tipping the whole trailer, all 40 feet of it. That got me interested in transport. I wasn't old enough to get a license, but it got me interested. And then I thought, well, I better go and find out how to drive one of these things. So I did. And when I was old enough, had a Class 1 license. But just going back to the tipping the trailers, because then we had potato trailers in as well. But that's when I first heard of names like Poop Art from Covent Garden, the old Covent Garden. G's, obviously, from Ely with celery and things like that. And then one thing led to another. So I don't want to bore you with all of the details, but then after that time in the United States, working with major growers there, including Rocky Ford onions in Colorado. Then in 78 to 1980, when I was back in this country, summer 1980, while working on the outspan contract. Now, the ships would come into, conventional ships coming into Cardiff. And there we had citrus, which was palletized. And so they'd be loading 40-foot trailers again, and then driving in with nighttime delivery to New Covent Garden by then, Spitalfields, Birmingham, midnight tip at Birmingham, Wigan, you name it. And then I became respectable and went into management with Christian Salverson, and that was my introduction to temperature control. So that was how I started off in the world of operations.
And that's presumably given you a big contact base to work from on this project. Do you know which fresh produce companies you might be collaborating with on the research?
Well, what we're going to do on that, because then after that, including my time with the International Agri-Technology Centre, which took me to India and Brazil and working on projects there. And the projects we've done since, working with major retailers, with food producers, growers, and the like, it's basically your readership list.
Yeah.
So what I'll be doing is I'll be approaching them individually, and also hopefully from this web interview too. We'd like to encourage participation. We're also encouraging sponsorship. I've done too many projects where I've ended up paying way too much money to my team. So I like to share the pain. And then we will have a pretty broad spectrum across the industry. So looking at the sectors, temperature controlled logistics services, fine. All the people that we normally know. You think about growers, often growing in this country and overseas, packers, importers, agents, each of the major shipping lines that are operating services in the European arena. I mean, so people like CLDN, you've got Stena Ferries, you've got Brittany Ferries Freight, and. So the idea is with them, and also with the port owners and operators. And that'll then take us into things like port health, the other regulatory agencies, whether you're looking at DEFRA, AFA, or whoever, and Border Force, looking at actually what's on the ground. We've worked with them consistently in different projects over the years, because as I say, I've been doing research and advisory since 1990. So after my disreputable operational past, then into this very refined world, and we'll be speaking with as many as we possibly can.
Well, it sounds like you've got your work cut out, Andrew. It doesn't sound like a simple project that you're taking on, and logistics never is, but a hugely valuable one for the fresh produce industry. And as I said earlier, we'll be covering it in the FPJ with the quarterly reports. When can we expect the first one, roughly?
Well, what we're looking at is the report. I'll answer your question. The report on the 2023, we want that out in March. All right. But obviously, the experience of January, February, March will then be published at the beginning of May, because obviously there's time for data to be recorded and us to look at the results of the investigation we've done. So, and then the idea is then quarterly thereafter, as we go through. However, for sponsors, there will be something a bit special. We'll organise an online forum where we can have a more detailed debate, because there'll be a lot more information that we'll have that we can discuss. I should point out that the information we're looking for from everybody, nothing commercially sensitive, no political agendas, nothing partisan. The idea is the information that we're using as our source information is all in the public domain. It's just at the moment it's in umpteen different places, and we need to bring it all together and then comment on it and understand it.
Okay, brilliant stuff. I can't wait for the first quarterly report, and we'll keep you updated with news on the project as it progresses. Thanks a lot for your time, Andrew.
Well, thank you.